Hello, I'm State Representative Rosemary Brown, and welcome to the Legislative Report. I have two very important people with me today, and we're going to have a conversation regarding our senior services, both in Monroe and Pike County. So we have Robin LaDulce, am I saying it right?
Yes, LaDulce.
From Pike County Aging Office, and then we have Patty Fritz from the Monroe County Aging Office. Right. And we were just briefly talking before we started the program on our senior population and how much it's growing, not only in Pennsylvania, but really across the country, but especially in Pennsylvania and even in our district that I represent. And how many people really are not aware of the services and the agency on the aging and what you both do. So we're going to go back and forth between Monroe and Pike, but you do a lot of the same things, and you have a little bit of slight differences among the two counties of different obstacles that you have. But I think the main purpose of the show is to really show people what's out there. And if you're watching as a senior, and you maybe don't need services now, but you might need them in the future, or you might have a family member that needs them, and to be educated and know what you do and what's out there. So let's start with you, Robin.
We feel that it seems that we have the open door when people are in need. We get the phone call, usually from a neighbor or a hospital, and we coordinate with all kinds of health services. We offer information, what do they need, and it kind of goes in a step process. And home assessment, I think aging offices in general are all similar, that you have to go through the process of where can we serve them best, what are their options. A lot of times they don't know that there isn't just one way to go, and it starts with the assessment of what their need level is, and then we coordinate with services, personal care services, home delivered meals, case management or service coordination, and it goes down the line, home modifications, adult daycare, as their needs increase or their family dynamics change. So it's a different situation dealing with a husband and a wife with no children involved than maybe a husband and a wife, and then there's children in the neighborhood or in the community that can help. So every situation is a little different.
Yeah, and that's always the biggest challenge, is that every dynamic that you deal with is different. So what suits one is not necessarily going to suit the other. So it's an ever-changing environment to best give the best service that you can. And Patty, I know that you have very similar functions, obviously, that you perform in Monroe. And what do you think is the biggest need out there right now?
Well, there's a lot of needs out there. I will say that the biggest service that we provide to individuals is actually our information and assessment. If you looked at the numbers, we have people who call into our agency for anything, whether it's a list of support groups, whether it's maybe want to be part of our newsletter, want a list of in-home service providers. So we have people who will actually just call once, we give them the information, and they're on their way. But that happens often. And then when, as Robin was saying, we get the call from anyone can refer anyone to us. And if it gets to beyond the point of a conversation, that's when we'll make the home visit. As far as the needs for us, unfortunately, we have a waiting list for some of those options programs. So we have people that are sitting out there that might need help with personal care or a home-delivered meal, and they can't receive it. And that is due to the inequity of the distribution of the lottery funds. We in Monroe County are fortunate enough to work very closely with Meals on Wheels, and so if we have someone who we can't add them to our list of consumers receiving the service, we work closely with them maybe, and they can do a sliding fee or something. So we try not to leave people hanging, but sometimes it does come to the point where we just don't have the funds to be able to serve them. And adult daycare, we don't have one in this area. That's a big need. Monroe County doesn't have an adult daycare center. At this point in time, we understand that there is a few doctors that are going to be looking into that soon, so we look forward to that. But presently for us, we have to, if we have individuals who need adult daycare, they have to travel either to Palmerton area or up to Wayne County in order to
Yeah, and that's very interesting.
And
I
it's
know
far.
That, the Pocono Tranquil Gardens
Yes.
I think it's supposed to be in a couple months open, and it is, and even there's some Alzheimer's I think,
Yes.
specialty care that's going to be
Right.
done there. But it is, and that's interesting that there's nothing here.
Right.
And for stimulation and socialization, and
It's
for people that
tremendous.
want to keep
Right.
their, parents as they age home with them.
And sometimes
need
that's
to
exactly
work.
what the need would be, that they need someone to take care of their loved one, and they would be willing to go to adult daycare center from 8 to 5 or whatever that might be.
Right.
It'll make it much easier for people to have that option.
And
So you're
if
having a lot, you're having a lot of requests for that type of situation,
I think we could. I don't think people want to make that travel.
especially for a daycare.
Exactly.
Because
It's a long
you can't,
drive.
right, for the day it really doesn't pay to do that if you have to get to work, and
Right.
you wouldn't drive that whole.
Yes.
Well, the conversation, as you know, with the state has been discussed with the lottery and the funds. And I think most people know, hopefully, that the lottery provides services for seniors. And the conversation has been that the population is going to be expanding even more and more for seniors. So the need for those revenues from the lottery needs to really expand so that we can continue to provide services and hopefully expand those services as compared to getting tighter and tighter
Yeah,
to be
same
able to provide
allocation.
them. And so right now there's some things being looked at, but the lottery funds play a very significant role in senior services. And so every time you buy a lottery ticket,
Yeah.
to make
Right.
sure that you know it's going to a good place and to good service for communities, for the seniors. But the Meals on Wheels program is a very strong program. And as you said, there's even some waiting lists and things with that. Now, that's run by volunteers,
Right.
people who deliver that. So you're always looking for volunteers as well with that, right?
We're a little different
Yeah,
than Monroe.
That's
we,
right, that's
we
right.
do our direct
right.
service provider of that program through the county in coordination with the Pike County Correctional Facility, and we're able to meet the needs of the 3 senior centers that we do have. So we do have 4 paid staff, but you couldn't do the program without the volunteer and input and the drivers and
Right.
the meal packers and things like that.
But that works very well for Pike.
Yes.
That works extremely well for Pike, so
Yes.
it's been very successful. So, and then the Meals on Wheels down in Monroe works a little bit differently, where you have the volunteer drivers delivering
Right.
the meals to the houses as well. The assessment phase, when somebody comes in, and I think if people are watching, to say, I'm not quite sure if I'm ready to call. Should I call? Should I call for my mother? Should I call for my father? They're seeing changes. They're seeing something or a possible need. To not be afraid to call. That's one reason that I wanted to have you on, definitely, is to tell people, don't be afraid to call for the information and to try to find out what works for their family.
Right. Planning. It's
Yeah.
a big part of it. They kind of get ready. Sometimes, well, unfortunately, a lot of times we enter into the situation in a crisis, and then it's very difficult to make
Right.
good decisions in an emotional state. There might have been a fall. Maybe they didn't realize they haven't seen their mother in quite a long time. We have a lot of distance caregivers, and they might come in every couple weeks to see their parent, and all of a sudden it hits them that mom's not the same, and then they have to hurry up and make some decisions. So we always like to have them come into the senior center, that's our gateway. Come in and see what's out there and learn some services that we have, and kind of slowly get involved. And then it's a lot easier to make those decisions when you have more options and more information.
Yeah.
And after holidays, it seems like we get a lot of calls, and most recently
see their
we're getting the
family.
emails from family members from a distance, which is great. But like Robin said, we try to be proactive, and we can go out into groups like the Rotary Club or any club and talk to issues related to aging, as well as the services we provide. And it is amazing how many people don't have any plans for power of attorneys or anyone to take over.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things that we try to get through to individuals, for family members, to talk to your parents or loved ones, older loved ones in the family that you might be responsible for at some point, is to have a plan. And rather that they choose the person they want to be making those decisions, then possibly have to go to the point of guardianship, and then the court would determine who the best guardian is for. So it's really proactive, but it's like a lot of things, people don't think about that until they need it. And so as much as we try to get out into the community, and I know Robin does also with our newsletters and articles, people many times say, oh, I didn't even know you existed,
Right,
but
right.
when they need us, But you mentioned the assessment. We get a call from an individual. It might be the neighbor saying, well, we're really worried about Mrs. So-and-so, Mrs. Smith. She hasn't been outside, and she's usually out every day. The first thing we do is try to call Mrs. Smith and make sure that she wants us to come. And then we will go send an assessor out and have a complete assessment, talk about every part of her life to determine what her needs are. And then it's always up to the individual whether or not they want us to
Right.
help them. The only time that it wouldn't be up to the individual would be if it came under protective services and there's abuse, neglect, or the individual truly cannot make decisions for themselves, and we go in a different route and we would get more involved. But
And that's hard as
it's-
people want to stay as independent as they
Yes.
can, but maybe, unfortunately, other people are noticing
yeah,
signs and I find it very interesting that after the holidays, when people gather with their families, that you get, an influx of calls, which makes sense.
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that you pointed that out, that's interesting that that happens, because if they don't see them throughout the
Right.
year,
They might have that weekly
Yeah.
phone call, but
yeah.
a lot of times people are
They haven't
very
seen the
willing to
house,
say
they haven't
yes.
seen what's going on.
So
and-
really, I mean, if you think about it, try to remind children and family of seniors to really pay attention to their loved ones and pay attention to how they're doing, what's happening, and get ahead of it, so that this way, like
Yeah.
you said, Robin, you don't have to make that last minute change
Yeah.
or rush to make a decision, and you're just keeping an eye and you're staying in touch and you're making
Right.
sure that
Yeah.
they're functioning.
And our goal is to
safely.
keep people at home.
Absolutely.
A lot of people think, oh, they see us, we're going to take them out. and
Right.
That's
Right.
the last thing. Our goal is to keep
Right.
people at home with
Right.
services that they need, as
Yeah.
long as it's safe.
It's
And even
about-
the seniors themselves,
Right.
if in still, great shape, but starting to look at, as they age, what they want to see their path be. If I start to fail in a certain way, this is what I would like, this is where I would like to go, and almost having that conversation with their family.
So
So
they
this
feel-
way, they have an idea. I would think it would
Yeah.
make sense that, it's a plan
Right.
as compared to a rush.
And the services that we put in are nominal compared to a crisis where there's be a facility placement. And that's why it's like an economical, it's not just what people choose, it's fiscally a good choice too. And
Right.
we've been trying to promote that too. Going back to Governor Rendell and his rebalancing the long-term care dollar, but we see it every day, that if just meals, maybe a care plan with a home health aide coming into the house and kind of giving that person that support, you can go, a very long time with that.
Right,
So-
right. Especially as people are living older now and more quality of life, because we're, so ahead on diagnostics and treatment and
Oh, yeah.
medications. So we're living quality of life longer, which is nice. What would you say are, we have just a few more minutes, but what would you say are the biggest obstacles, besides what we've mentioned already, in Pike County and in Monroe, with seniors and in your jobs? The biggest obstacle?
Accessing the senior effectively and consistently. I mean, the funding isn't there to get them to the senior center. Maybe once a week, maybe twice a week,
Right.
we can bring them in. The information and referrals, the services to get out there, it's costly. So, and that's a big.
And we're going to
big
make sure we
problem.
put some of your information up on the screen as well, so that the viewers can look at that and they know where to get in touch with you and they know where to go for the senior centers and things. So we'll make sure that's on the screen for you. How about you, Patty?
Well, I always say funding is the most difficult problem for our agency. There was a lot of changes through the Department of Public Welfare's Aging Waiver Program, and so some of the funding was eliminated, and so trying to shift that into a small organization where people have to even add more hats to wear.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I have a staff that has been there for a long time, and they're willing and able to do that. I think one of our other problems is our senior centers don't have much room for expansion where they are. And we would really like to reach out to younger seniors and have more activities like exercise rooms and just more activities that are going to draw in people. Even though seniors are younger and a lot of them are independent, they're still looking for things to do. Just the other day, actually our neighbor who had just moved up here from New Jersey, he retired and he was over and he's bored to death. And he said, I don't even know where to go. He has some hobbies, but he doesn't know anybody. So it would be that kind of a thing. If he was a card player, we do have some of that at the center, but I think our problem is we can't expand a lot.
And I do hear that a lot. I do hear that as well. You know, what can I do? I want to do something, you know.
Volunteer.
Yeah.
Right,
So we
right. I
say
sent to
get involved.
RSVP a lot, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and
that's a
so,
very good thing.
yeah, so I know I get that a lot as well. And I know we could talk for a very long time about the services, but I do encourage the viewers that if you do feel that in the future you're going to need, have a need with senior in your life, to please contact the Area Agency on the Aging to make sure that you can kind of get a preventative plan or get some sort of plan in place. And Robin and Patty, thank you very much for joining me today. And we're going to take a short break and we'll be back with the legislative report.
Did you know that the main entrance to the Pennsylvania State Capitol building is home of 2 bronze doors that each weigh over 1 ton? As the primary entrance to this beautiful architectural building, the bronze doors signify the many accomplishments and sacrifices endured throughout the history of the Commonwealth. The magnificent archway over top the doors contains a portrait of William Penn, founder of the Keystone State. The upper panels on the doors commemorate the forming of our nation, with the signing of the Declaration of Independence and Constitution. The bottom panels depict the laborious industries of the Commonwealth, including coal mining and agriculture. Now you know.
Hello, I'm State Representative Rosemary Brown. Welcome to the Legislative Report. And I'm with Jane Doyle from the Monroe County Transit Authority. And we're here today to talk about the transportation system in Monroe County and really how it has flourished and expanded over the years. It is tremendous what has been done locally and with the growth that we've had in the area as well. So Jane, we have a little bit of time, but we're going to try to get as much in as we can. Tell us how it's grown over the years.
Well, Monroe County Transit, Monroe County Transit Authority has been in business for over 30 years. In 2009, we celebrated our 30th year anniversary. And so the transportation system in this county has really flourished from that point. It had just a few lines with no shared ride or anything like that, and it has really flourished over the years. So now, today, we have 4 public fixed routes on our public fixed route system, and we have our shared ride program that has many programs under that umbrella as well.
Right. Now, the shared ride, so there's a lot of details to the transportation system, and sometimes it gets a little confusing, but we're hoping today that anybody that's watching that is having a little bit of an issue with transportation will understand how to best utilize it and maybe some of the costs and the fees that are associated with it. And obviously, we can't go through all the pickup and drop-off sites, but we have flyers even here in my office, and then you obviously have them, and they can get that to see the maps of where they can get the bus line, where they can get dropped off, and the time schedules as well. And if anybody's very good with the computer, I think you have those maps online as well, right?
Absolutely. Let me just start by saying the online information is a great tool. You can get all of our information on www.gomcta.com. That's our website. Actually, we just started a pilot program on there that you'll see. We have online bus schedule with real-time buses telling you where buses are at the given time. It is in its infancy stage, so bear with us. It's a work in progress.
Right.
But it tells you where the buses are, at what location at any given time, so you kind of know about how much time you have before it gets to your stop. So that's a great tool that just came aboard.
And they're pretty efficient too. So I know, with the time schedule, give or take, based on the time that's on the schedule and on the map. I mean, is there a time frame that, give or take a couple minutes, that they're usually pick up and drop off?
That's a great question, because we always tell our consumer, please be there to the stop like 10 minutes early. And the reason is maybe your watch is off a little different than ours. Our buses, we try to keep them, on time. We don't want them to the stop too early, but just to be safe, it's great to be there 10 minutes early. And generally, that's a good method of standard to use.
Yeah, and you never know with traffic or what's going
Absolutely.
to happen with weather, but hopefully most of the time. I think there's some clarification I know through my office often with the shared ride and the regular routes and who can utilize what and the price of doing the different options. And maybe you can clarify that a little bit.
Sure. We really have two distinct services. Our public fixed route is available to anyone, and that runs on a fixed route as the name suggests. So you don't need to do anything but just be at the stop. It's $1.25 to get on board. That's our general, public fee. There are some reduced fares under some programs. All of our buses are ADA accessible, so anyone can access those the fixed route or our shared ride for that matter. So you don't need to do anything to get on the fixed route, just to be there. The shared ride works differently. There are some programs that fall under our shared ride. The biggest one is our senior program, and that is subsidized by the state lottery.
Right.
And for persons 65 or older, the shared ride is offered at a reduced cost to them. Generally, for someone 65 or older, they're going to pay $1.25 one way, unless it's under 4 miles, then it's 75 cents. And it's a one flat rate throughout the entire county. So price is a little different if they go outside of the county, and I'll touch on that, some places that we go outside of the county, but that's a really reasonable price, and I think offers a great service to seniors, offering them the ability to get to places at an affordable rate.
It is, especially now as you look at the gas prices. And sometimes it's just nice, to pop on a bus and not have to worry about driving and parking your car and walking from the
Absolutely.
parking lot, get valet service dropped off, wherever. So sometimes it's nice for the convenience. Now, I know that there's times where it's difficult for people to get to a bus stop. So sometimes I think some of the viewers may have to work out some arrangements where, because we are a rural nature, that
Right.
we have a very different type of area, so we're not a metropolitan urban type of area. So when you're out into communities and developments that are, in Monroe County, that it's hard for somebody to get from the house actually to the physical location where the bus stop is. So the viewers really, that would be one little tidbit that might have to be worked on their arrangements if they're trying to get to the bus. Now, we gently touched on shared ride, that if you were not subsidized, for that, to be able to get the shared ride to the bus, a car to the bus, so to speak, would be very difficult and sometimes a little pricey, right?
Well, the purpose for shared ride was to give access to people who didn't have access to the public fixed route. The public fixed route is, in fact, the most cost-effective means of transportation and should be utilized before any other program. But so if you live more than a quarter mile away from the fixed route, then that's where shared ride comes into effect. It is a problem if people don't qualify under a funding source, because then it is a little pricey for them if they're paying out of pocket for the entire trip. But as I mentioned, we have the senior program that greatly reduces the fare for our seniors. We also have a program called Persons with Disabilities, and that's a great help to people who have medical conditions that qualify under the disability program. Their fare is also subsidized and is reduced as a result. We also have a medical assistance program, and so people who are receiving some help for medical costs through the Department of Public Assistance are eligible for that service, and they can take that to and from medical appointments. that are covered under Access or Medical Assistant, one of the medical assistance programs. The consumer for that program does not pay any copay at all. So, and then we determine whether they are eligible to use the fixed route or shared ride, depending upon where they're living and what
The
appointment
distance.
that they need to get to.
Very interesting. So yeah, you have a couple different situations. So the best way for somebody, if they're questioning what they should do, where they are, how far they are from the route, are they over the quarter-mile distance from the fixed route, would be to give a call, check on the website. I mean, I would assume if they're questioning whether they are a certain distance from a fixed
Sure.
route, and they would have to go the shared ride route, and then they'd have to decide if they fit into a subsidy if they were 65 and older, or if they didn't, and they could go through a couple of that type of situation. So where do they make their first step?
Sure. A phone call to us is always welcome. Our phone number is 570-839-6282. My personal extension is 426. I'm happy to answer any of those types of questions. It is confusing with all the programs available, so we're more than happy to assist people in finding the program that fits their needs. If they do have access to the computer, everything is listed on our computer, on our website, as I mentioned earlier, and all of the applications are downloadable from our website. If you don't have access to the computer, we'd be more than happy to mail you out the application that you need in order to gain access to those services.
Now, if somebody, you briefly touched on it, if somebody has an appointment outside the area and they need to go to the doctor in Scranton or Allentown, or they're outside the area, how does that work?
Okay. Well, first you have to be registered for shared ride. Shared ride is the only service that goes outside of the county. The fixed route stays within the perimeters. So we do service Wilkes-Barre and Scranton, but we only service certain areas on certain days of the week. The entire county is serviced Monday through Friday, and then Wilkes-Barre and Scranton is serviced on designated days. Allentown, Easton, Bethlehem is designated on certain days, and so forth. And so if they call in, we'll tell them exactly when that area is serviced. Another great thing to remember is we also service the VA centers. So veterans have access to complete line of medical services in Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, or Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton, and that's a very popular service as well.
Absolutely. No, that's a very good point to mention for people that go up to the VA. And I know that comes up a lot with our office too.
Right.
I'm outside the area. What do I do? How do I go about doing it?
Once you're registered, however, on shared ride, again, it's on a reservation basis. So every ride needs to be called in at least 48 hours, 2 business days before 4 p.m. to schedule a ride with shared ride, because it is first registered and then on a reservation basis.
Jane, thank you very much for being with us today, and I hope the viewers got a little bit of information out of how they can utilize the services of shared ride.
One last thing I'd like to say, though, that's become very popular. We go out and solicit our services to senior groups and senior clubs. And what's become very popular are seniors are getting together as groups, forming their own groups, and they're going to all different kinds of recreational things. They're going to the Shawnee Playhouse. They're going to Penns Peak. They're going to Woodloch Resort. I had about 150 people a couple weeks ago go to Shawnee Playhouse.
Nice.
So that has really taken off, and that's it's great. They get to go together. It's very reasonable.
So it's something to think about. It's not just you. It could be your friends and a group, and as long as everybody's registered.
And and they meet the age of
Over
65 for the subsidy.
And the shared ride. So you
Yes.
could have a group of 4 people at $1.25 each way.
Well, out of county it's a little bit more, but in
county.
county it's $1.25 each way. Out of county it's $6.30 for senior 65 and over one way, but round trip that's over 100 miles. So for $12.60 you're really getting a great deal.
Absolutely. It's a very good point that you brought up, and I hope everybody listens to that, because it keeps everybody active, enjoying life, and you could do it as a group, and they could utilize the service. So thank you, Jane, very much for being with me on the legislative report.